What's novel in our paper is that the data we're using is on the number of robots that are in use in a given country industry year, starting in the early 1990s and going up to the late 2000s. And these data haven't been used before. And I think one of the reasons is that the data have been collected by basically an association of robot suppliers. So it's the private sector that collected these data, maybe not initially for research purposes. And as academic researchers, we usually have a good idea of what kind of data is available sort of from statistical agencies or you know, is collected from researchers themselves. But we sometimes don't really know what the private sector is sort of collecting in terms of data. And I think that's the main reason that it took us some time to become aware of these data. The sectors we looked at are mainly manufacturing sectors, and there we see a large impact on productivity. So productivity has increased a lot due to the robots. Employment hasn't changed much overall. There's some evidence that low-skilled workers' employment has decreased, but overall employment seems not to have been affected by the robots. We also compute what the impact would be for the entire economy. Of course, you know, keeping in mind that robots weren't used outside manufacturing in most cases, and there we still find a large impact. So it's about 0.36 percentage points of productivity growth annually, and productivity has grown at about 2% on average across the countries that we're looking at. So, you know, 0.36 percentage points of that's about 1/6. So that's a huge contribution. It's certainly the case that many tasks that workers used to be doing, they are no longer doing, because those tasks are now done by robots. So it's certainly the case that workers need to move. They need to move into sort of different tasks, maybe different jobs. So in the aggregate, we don't see a fall in employment due to the robots, but as I said, there is some adverse effects on low-skilled workers. In the long run, we believe that in a sense robots complement all workers because they raise the productivity of the entire economy. But you know, in the short run, and maybe the period we're looking at, you know, 14 years, is maybe sort of the medium run. There might still be some sort of transitional effects where some types of workers you know, struggle for some time, but eventually we think that the robots should make everyone better off, and in this sense they complement human workers. We would expect these patterns to be repeated there. In fact, we know that China nowadays is the largest buyer of industrial robots in the world. We also know from other studies that, you know, done by other economists, that manufacturing industries in developing countries actually operate in very similar ways as manufacturing industries in developed countries. So it's mainly about, you know, the time it takes for them to adopt the modern technologies, but eventually, you know, the way they make stuff is going to be very similar to what we see in developed countries. And in this sense, yes, we expect the pattern to be very similar. We think that in general, robots will continue to make a positive contribution to productivity growth. But it will be different in the sense that robots will move into other sectors. They will also move into services. For example, there are cleaning robots now. There might be cooking robots. You know, there are hotels in Japan now staffed entirely by robots. You know, we're not sure how common these things are going to be, but in general, we expect robots to also move into services, and in this way, you know, quantitatively, we still expect them to be important for productivity growth, but the exact ways in which they'll affect the economy, that will be different.